Hello and welcome to the Genuine Learning Blog. My name is Melissa Galasso, and today we're going to talk about the third proposal that the FASB has issued related to reference rate reform. This one is not their fault. So we're going to talk a little bit about why they're issuing this amendment, this proposal, and what would it entail. So this is got two real pieces to it. First, it's the deferral of the sunset date, and then amendments to the definition. And so remember, ASU 2020-04, which was our first ASU in this standard, offered entities who are being impacted by reference rate reform, whether that was because of their lease or a hedge or any other instrument tied to LIBOR. As LIBOR was going away, they didn't want to penalize them. So they offered practical expedients and exceptions to current GAAP to make the transition a little easier. However, when they did that, they set up the effective date based on what the expected sunset date was. So the UK FCA had announced that LIBOR was going to go away in 2021. However, nobody predicted a global pandemic. And so as a result, the theory was that you have a year from the date that the LIBOR sunsets to implement these exceptions and these simplifications in GAAP. And once that was over, right, they were going to pull it all out. So they created Topic 848, which is reference rate reform, so they could put it in and simply take it out at GAAP. They didn't update all the different sections within. And so the sunset provision was going to come and go based on LIBOR going away. But enter COVID. And the whole point of this was that the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, which is in the United Kingdom, had indicated again that it was going to have to end by December 31st of 2021. And so the sunset provision was set for December 31st of 2022 in ASU 2020-04. However, due to COVID and a lot of other things that were going on, in March of 2021, they announced that they were going to, the cessation date was going to be extended. And so now the 1, 3, 6, and 12-month tenors of USD LIBOR was going to now end on June 30th, 2023, 6 months after the sunset provision in 848. And so that created a difficulty that many people asked about, where they're like, hey, my LIBOR's, continuing. I want to ride this out as long as I can before I go through this modification accounting. And so all this does is defer the sunset provision that is in Topic 848 to 1 year from the new expected sunset date, which is December 31st now of 2024, 1 year after LIBOR is supposed to go away. The other area of focus here is the definition of SOFR, right? So the Secured Overnight Financing Rate was introduced in ASU 2018-16, where they talked about the SOFR as a benchmark interest rate. So really, as part of this movement away from LIBOR, there are only so many benchmark interest rates. So you take out LIBOR, not leaving a lot of options for people. And so in ASU 2018-16, they introduced SOFR, but they specifically introduced in terms of this term for this SOFR swap rate, which was the overnight index swap rate. And so it was very much specific to the OIS rate based on SOFR. It did not include any forward-looking term-based versions. And so because it was so specific, some people have said, hey, what can we do for some of these others? And FASB has always been willing to talk about this. Even when they issued it, they said they were going to monitor SOFR to see what happens and what picks up in the market. Because again, LIBOR was going away. They had this whole global pandemic, and they were trying to figure out what was the appropriate next steps. And so because at the time, there were no cash or derivative instruments indexed to SOFR that was that they could use, they said they weren't sure if the term rate was going to be emerging in the market. However, again, due to that monitoring, they came back and they said, you know what? They amend the definition of the SOFR swap rate so it's no longer limited to the OIS rate and could include other forms of SOFR like the SOFR term. So again, this is really just a change, not because they wanted to, but because the market is evolving and they need to be responsive to that. So this proposal, again, very pretty narrow in terms of scope, just changing that definition and updating the sunset date because of the delay in LIBOR going away. So very, very niche in terms of impact, but very important nonetheless. So comments are due June 6, 2022, and I'm sure the FASB would love to hear from you. All right, that's a wrap on this week's blog. Hopefully it was helpful for those of you who do have items that are tied to SOFR, or tied to LIBOR, or are looking at other modifications of SOFR. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I hope to see you on a future blog. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.